Hey, everybody, welcome back to Unfiltered with Bob Z. This is the podcast where we promise to give it to you unfiltered. We're going to give it to you just like we get it. And today we are very, very fortunate to have as our guest the mayor of my favorite city. I call it Mermaid City. A lot of people call it Norfolk, Virginia. But we have the mayor of Norfolk, Virginia here, Mr. Kenneth Alexander. And we're just going to talk about a few issues that are concerning to the state, local, national, whatever comes up. We're gonna try to touch on the issues. And you know, I've been knowing the mayor for quite some time. I remember when he first ran as delegate. I was like, oh wow, okay, that's that made sense. And full disclaimer, I supported him for his campaigns as mayor, and I'm happy about it. We never had African American mayor, black mayor in the city of Norfolk, and I've been watching Norfolk politics ever since I was a child. I mean, I went from Leaf all the way through. I mean, I know everything about the politicians. So when we had the opportunity to have an African American mayor, I was like, okay, it's overdue, for me. But I want to talk a little bit about the issues. And just, since you've been mayor, I just want to know, what are some of your proudest accomplishments that you've had since you've been mayor?
Well, thank you, Bob, for this platform, and thank you for the opportunity to be with Bob Z Unfiltered. I'm a big fan of yours, and I have supported your endeavors as well. And before we get started with the questions, let me just sincerely thank you for all that you do for the city and the region, but more importantly, what you do in the lives of students, be it students at all levels. I've seen you in our public schools, and I've seen you interact with college students, and you are authentic, you're genuine, and a lot of those students stay in touch with you, and they have stayed in touch with me. And the introduction came because of you. So let me just say thank you, and continue to do what you are doing in the lives of our youth. Well, Bob, thank you again for this opportunity. There are a lot of things that we have accomplished together in the city of Norfolk. I take no responsibility or any ownership of what the success that we have had, but I'm just glad that I've been a part of it. Some of the things that we've done, just start with just community policing. One of the first things we decided to do when I became mayor is to return back to community policing. Norfolk and most cities in America after 9/11 went to this paramilitary police style, militarizing the police department, heavy armored police departments. And we decided to make a decision, the council and the manager at the time decided to make a decision to return back to community policing. And there was some personnel changes that the manager made. One was moving that chief at the time, Mike Goldsmith, upstairs as a deputy city manager. And
remember that.
And then the manager tapped Larry Boone to be the police chief. And we've seen with the council efforts in community policing, we've seen a decrease in the city of Norfolk, a decrease in the number of police involved of shootings. Second thing we did, we decided to ask the state police to investigate all police shootings in the city of Norfolk. And third and final thing on that front, we invested heavily in our police department with equipment, but more important with training as it relates to de-escalation training and
the key.
And de-escalating situations, as well as crisis intervention training. There's still things that we need to do as it relates to having our police officers not to be confronted with persons who are suffering or experiencing mental health, and because things tend to go south, go wrong,
right.
Because our policemen are trained to respond to a perceived threat, and it has not ended well for those persons who are experiencing mental health issues or a situation where they need medical attention and not necessarily the police. So that's one of the things that I am still concerned with. We've made some gains, but there's still, again, things to do. And let me just say one more thing about what, as it relates to what the council has done together. For the first time in Norfolk's history, we have earned a AAA bond rating, and I know that may not be, front page news. Is not sexy, if you will.
Well, what's the benefit of the AAA bond rating?
It means that you can borrow money very, very cheap.
The interest rates.
Interest rates, yeah.
Right.
Only few cities in Virginia.
And what do you attribute that? Did you attribute it to like being I know we won. I think it was like well-managed city awards for a number of years. What do you attribute to AAA bond rating to?
It's just our management style. Never in the history of Norfolk. Now, this is what I want to get. Never in the history.
That's a long history.
That we have had of earned a AAA bond rating. And the third and final thing, we've been able to tap federal pocketbook, $44.4 million. And other fees and grants have come, but $30 million CNI and $14.4 million in a bill grant. So those are some of the things that we did. And we can get into some other things that we've done, but just those things just come to mind.
Right. Well, one of the things, I guess one of the issues has been, and I've watched, we've had some wow moments, some wow moments in the city where I said, wow, when they unveiled, and this is for me personally, I'm gonna tell you the truth, I'm gonna keep it unfiltered. When they unveiled the casino, I was like, wow, because while we have our area, I wanted to be progressive, and so when I said the casino, and I was just thinking like, it's an opportunity for everything else. I'm like looking at the tax revenue and, money to do other things. So I look at it, but I was looking at it, I was like, that's pretty nice, and so we have, I've been seeing some, pro casino stuff and some, con casino stuff. Well, how do you think the casino is going to benefit? And I know this is one of your key things. You always say all of Norfolk, and I get it. That's fair enough. We have, I ain't calling no names, but some of our leaders not like locally, but maybe on a national level that don't really cater to the entire. When you're elected and you're an executive for whatever state, local, then you are the executive for the entire population.
That's correct.
So. How do you feel like the casino is going to benefit all the citizens of Norfolk?
Well, in full disclosure, there's an election, and I don't know if this is going to air before the election, but there's an election on November the 3rd, and I have made a very cautious effort not to use city. And I won't use city time and city money and city resources to promote the casino, nor will I use resources to tell people to defeat it or not vote for it. So I'm just speaking, generally about the process and about the revenue and what the analysis has shown. When we were first approached about a casino in Hampton Roads in Norfolk, it was pitched to us as a tribal casino because the Pamunkey Indian tribe had earned the federal recognition to have a tribal casino on land that they could place into trust with the Secretary of Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Right, okay. Very familiar with that.
Yeah, and however, we received it. We understood they had that right, but at the same time, we believed that a tribal casino was just not going to work. Just didn't fit.
Okay.
And the taxing structure or the revenue structure was very complicated because it's a sovereign nation, sovereign land,
right.
And you had to negotiate a fee, a predetermined fee, and it just was not beneficial to the city. So the city, of course, understood that the state was looking at gaming, casino gaming, in Virginia as well. Now, gaming has been in Virginia for a long time. Lottery and
Right.
and bingo halls and gray machines. You have gray machines in convenience stores and restaurants.
I see it all the time.
All the time. So you have these machines, these devices where people are playing slots, if you will,
Pretty much.
all the time. Whether it's a game of chance, a game of skill, I mean, you can debate what it is. So what the city decided to do is to just allow the state to make the decision on how many casinos there will be, the type of development there will be, and where those casinos will be located based on an analysis, based on a JLOC analysis. And when JLOC, that's the Joint Legislative Audit Review Commission.
I was about to say, what is JLOC? I don't know.
Yeah. So they did a study.
My pay grade.
Yeah, my too. They did a study, and they determined that, and they offered a recommendation to the General Assembly that casinos in Danville, Bristol, Richmond, Portsmouth, and Norfolk. Okay, and so the state decided that, and also in that legislation, that it has to be commercial. And what's important about being commercial, that all taxes that's due to the city of Norfolk and due to those other localities must be collected. And there's no subsidies.
Right.
There's no grants. There's no special exemptions. The developer would have to pay for the land and pay all fees and all taxes and all revenue that's due to the city of Norfolk. And third and final thing is that the voters will decide, not the city council.
Okay.
And not the legislature.
So it's a referendum.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
And so I want to make sure that's clear, and that's the reason I have been, quiet.
Not swearing.
No, because people need to decide based on what the city has laid out, and more importantly, what the legislation allows.
Okay. Well, okay. Let's just say that the casino referendum passes. So then the revenue generated will be a fully taxable
revenue.
Okay.
And Bob, this is important. This is the large. If it passes, this will be the largest development without any taxpayer money, any subsidy in the history of Norfolk. This could be a $500 million development.
Well, here's my thing, and I'm kind of I have to skip around because I was gonna go to the tunnel fees, but I want to, I'm looking at okay, so again we have Portsmouth and Norfolk because Portsmouth is trying to.
Yes.
It's one of those cities. I mean, if you look at you got Danville, you got all these other cities that are kind of spread apart, but then you have Portsmouth and Norfolk, and one of my concerns was that, once again. You look at, Portsmouth is the only city that maybe Richmond, but I think Portsmouth is the city that's a minority city. We're teeting, we're almost there, but I don't know what, we'll get to the St. Paul's development because I don't know if that's going to take us back or not. But with the tolls and tunnel fees, I mean, that was a big concern of mine because I was thinking there's no, I mean, probably the biggest toll for anybody would be for anyone would be to go to Virginia Beach. And I know that some of the money, because they did the tunnel projects and they rebuilt the tunnels. And so, I mean, that was fair, but it's almost like a user tax. It's a user tax, and I know they made some changes, but I know that they can still they still have what they call it quasi state authority, where they can stop you from getting your tags renewed from tunnel fees. So I said all of that just to say, looking at this area, sometimes it's like, looking at even it's just the 7 cities. We can take out the state. That how do we rectify? I think that the city officials from Norfolk and Portsmouth should probably work more closer in step and have more. I mean, not saying like, and I know you're a big fan of regionalism because I am too. I'm probably more than you. I want to do this, the county of Hampton Roads and have 7 boroughs like New York, which is way out there. But I'm just a big fan of regionalism. So how do you feel like the Norfolk and Portsmouth, as just like looking at demographics and stuff, that they should work together more closely?
Yeah. Well, first, the tunnel tolls. As you know, I campaigned against the tolls.
You did.
I was part of a group that sued to try to eliminate the tolls from being imposed in the first place. We believe it was unconstitutional because taxpayers had paid for, and fees and tolls had paid for those, especially the downtown tunnel.
Right. Oh my God.
Had already been paid for, and that monies that's being generated at the downtown tunnel is being used to pay for the expansion of the Midtown Tunnel and other improvements. And a lot of us believe that it was 2 separate facilities, and it came down with the Supreme Court of Virginia ruled that it actually is one network. And so because it's one network, that the tolls at the downtown tunnel was legal.
The Elizabeth River.
Yes.
It's like,
as it relates to regionalism, you're absolutely right. I am a big fan of regionalism. I do like the concept of boroughs or having this metropolitan region, this MSA.
it would be huge.
Absolutely. We're one media market, but we're just not one political subdivision. And so, it would be, it would be very impressive in the regard of having, one school system, one police department, one fire department,
Right. I agree.
one administration, yeah.
Even if you talk about, let's say, the city of New York with boroughs, I mean, Brooklyn is totally different from Manhattan.
Yes.
But when it comes to when you say New York City, you're wielding a lot of power. And this is the largest media market without a professional sports team in the whole country. So, I just think that we could get a whole lot more accomplished. We don't have to all be, every city in the 7 cities, they have their own personalities, but we can still like have regional, cooperation and get a lot more accomplished, I think.
And of course, we certainly we meet. The mayors meet, managers meet, and the superintendents. They meet, and so there is a lot of dialogue and conversation, shared information. However, if you look at the waterfront in Norfolk, the waterfront in Portsmouth, certainly I think that we could start there by doing some joint
That would be great.
activities and festivals, and and I think both cities could realize revenue and also opportunities if we just start somewhere, and that could be just doing things on the waterfront, port side, water side, working
excellent.
together, as we at one time with Harbor Fest and so I think there's opportunity.
Moja Fest and
exactly. Afram Fest.
Yeah, it was. It seemed like the waterfront was booming. With every time you turn around, and the ferries was running back and forth. So, I think that on the economic front, that's probably. I think Hampton and Newport News are probably more in lockstep as far as like cooperating. 2 cities in the 7 cities area. But I want to segue just a little bit, and I want to just because it made like national news, and I was like, people were sending it to me left and right. We're talking about the St. Paul's corridor issue, and they were saying, well, with the federal money that was involved, and full disclosure, I had actually applied for a job with, and I thought it was, I'm so idealistic sometimes, it's crazy. I applied for a job with Urban Strategies.
USI?
Yeah, and I was like, the job was consisting of, someone going into the communities and making sure people, I'm like, man, nobody will do that. Like, that's just my thing. I was like,
You're probably right. Nobody will do it like you, Bob.
I really, like, knocking on doors, like, y'all good? And so just, the whole issue with the money. And I think a lot of people may have got, by the report that came out, and may have gotten the issue skewed just a little bit. So I just hope that you could bring some clarity to that.
Yeah, thank you. I think the article that you were referring to is an article that appeared in the Bloomberg.
Yes, that's it.
And that article was completely misleading, completely false. And in my opinion, it was very unprofessional journalism. And let me tell you the reason why. The article combined opportunity zones with the St. Paul transformation.
Right.
They're two separate tracks. The opportunity zones was legislation that was signed by the president, and I was there in the White House when the president signed.
I remember that.
Yes, for the opportunity zones, and that initiative or effort is designed to attract investments in hard areas, census tracts. In Virginia, there are 16. The governor offered the census tracts. The city had recommendations, but the governor offered census tracts throughout Virginia where investors or wealth management firms could partner with localities, communities to attract resources, money. If Bob Z or friends and company and through a wealth management group decided to put capital money in one of the census tracts and let it stay for 5 years, then there are some exemptions on the capital gains that you realize. If you let the money stay for 7 years, the gains there's a further exemption. But if you let that revenue or the gains sit for 10 years,
right,
and then you decide to cash out, sell, that rate of return could be as much as 30-40%, and the gains is exempt from taxation.
Right, capital gain.
That is the opportunity zones. Now, the St. Paul's transformation project right now is focused solely on Tidewater Gardens.
Right.
Although when people speak of St. Paul's, they speak of Young's Terrace and Calvert Square,
right,
and parts of Huntersville and Downtown Plaza. But the C&I grant, the $30 million that the city was awarded from HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, was for $30 million. It is only for Tidewater. And we just received $14.4 million bill grant, and that's from the United States Department of Transportation. Now, let me just put it why the article was just poorly written. What the article did not say, that 50% of Tidewater Gardens is in the 100-year floodplain.
Right, that's true. That's a fact.
That's a fact. And what that means is that there's a 26% chance of a flood happening during the life of a typical mortgage. It's a 30-year mortgage. There's a 1/3. There's a 26% chance that a flood will occur. Here's the really issue that we are experiencing. 40% of the homes in Tidewater Gardens sit on Newton Creek. There were 40% of the homes are sitting on a creek. And today, when I went out personally, as you know, and I met with as many residents before we even started with people first, I went out personally, met with met in community, met with residents, and they told the stories about what they wanted and what they were experiencing with flooding, and electrical problems with their short circuiting. They spoke about lighting, and the list goes on and on and on. The city applied for the C&I grant. In that C&I grant, the city put out a RFP for a developer, because part of the grant, Housing Authority in the city had to name a developer. And the city, and I was not part of the interview process, but there were some responses, and it was decided by the team that interviewed and vetted the developers that Brenshaw out of Chicago would be the developer. The city submitted the package to Secretary Carson and HUD, and the city was, of course, awarded $30 million. This is what another piece that was not reported, Bob.
Okay.
Out of the 618 units
In Tidewater.
that eventually will be replaced at some point in time. The developer could replace all of those units that's going to be replaced. One third of them will be replaced. He could replace all of them in one building, just one building. He said, you know what, I'm just going to put all the replacement.
Like a high rise.
I could put all the replacement units in one building, one of the blocks. Put one of the blocks. The city just said no. There's no way that we would put all of replacement.
Concentration of poverty.
Exactly. So every block thus far will be 1/3 replacement, 1/3 low income, and 1/3 market. That is much different from the unit or the complex that's beside St. Paul's that's already built. That's 80% market.
So what about the, okay, let's say Broad Creek. How does it measure up to the design and what went into Broad Creek?
Broad Creek was a Hope 6 grant, so that was a different. Broad Creek, you have replacement units,
right,
and then you have the homeowners.
On the other side of President
exactly. But this particular development, everyone will be in the same block.
Is that true?
Yes, a third.
All right.
Listen to me good now. A third replacement.
Okay.
A third low income, and a third market will be in the same block. Same block. Unlike what's next door, which is an 80-20 LIHTC project, where 80% is market, only 20% is low income.
That's revolutionary. I would like to, because everybody is talking gentrification and, but I mean, if a third is replacement units, another third is low income, right, and
only 1/3 is market, where's the gentrification?
No, I mean, that wasn't reported, like you said.
And also, from the residents that have moved voluntarily, some of them are still, and most of them are still in the community. Some of them went right to Young's and Calvary. Okay. And they can come back. So they're right in community. And here's back to People First or USI. When I went out and met with residents, one of the things that I wanted us to do, even before any units are torn down, any units are demolished, what services could we provide right now?
Right. That's.
And here are some things that we know. We know that earnings from the time I went out and knocked on doors and met people in rec centers and at St. Mary's in Tidewater, and I met at Young's, and I met at Calvary at the tenant management office. We know that income rose from $11,000 to $18,000. We know that early childhood education, or children who are enrolled in and some type of child care, early child care,
Right.
rose. We know that persons who more people are now insured with health insurance than before we first started. So these are some of the things that didn't get reported, but this is before any demolition, because the city, through People First, putting $3.5 million ongoing into the effort before there has been any demolition. And then we set up, of course, a commission, the Mayor's Commission, where Councilwoman Graves and Councilman Riddick chairs the commission and meet with the task force, meet with the group on a regular. So that article was just misleading. You talk about a hit job. That was
that had everybody. I mean, I was like receiving emails and inbox and Facebook. I was like, whoa. Let me take. I don't just take anything at face value. I try to look at it, because I'm not a great big fan of concentrated poverty, no matter where it is, whether it's in housing projects or in underserved communities like Huntersville or perhaps a Park Place or wherever. I just think I was always told that, okay, for example, people are always surprised when it's a cake, and if you take, I'm old school, so my mom would use like vanilla extract and flour and some milk and some sugar, and she blend it all together, and then it come out in the oven, and it's a cake.
Yeah.
Well, nobody was surprised because you had all the ingredients. But if you put concentrated poverty on drugs, you put, people with hopelessness and mental health issues, you put all that in there, and then you come out with crime and different things, nobody should be surprised because it's a cake. You put all the ingredients in it to come out. So I'm not really a great fan of that. So I am a fan of mixed communities, mixed income communities, because I kind of go back old school where we would look and say, okay, well, some of my friends, like we called them city workers, by the way, people who got waste management and people who were like fixing the potholes in the street. When I grew up in Huntersville, and so that was, we're like, wow, they got a job, and so we had respect, for those workers. So, any living is honest living. So I get what you're saying. And so just I wanted to just kind of give you an opportunity to, because I heard it and I was like, you can't always, there's always the other side of the coin.
No Opportunity Zone money right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's been used in the St. Paul's corridor. So that article alluded to that we were using Opportunity Zone money. That's not true.
So what's going to happen with you say it sits on the creek? What's going to happen with the when the new development? Is it still going to be a creek, or
no, it's Blueway Greenway? Yeah, we will. It certainly won't build back on 40%.
Okay.
That sit on a creek. Certainly, we won't build back on.
Okay,
that.
right.
We're not,
So I don't want it to be a creek now.
No.
It's like
Blueway Greenway,
housing,
aesthetically pleasing and maybe recreational and some Greenway, Blueway Greenway.
Well, let me ask you. Let me switch up gears just a little bit. The pandemic and voting.
Yeah.
I mean, now I just like I said, I worked for the city before, and I got to give a shout out to our elections office, man. They are the bomb. We have the leadership in there, Stephanie Isles, and the leadership in there, and I'm biased, okay, because I've seen and I've served as chief election officer at polls, and I've worked closely with them, so they were a little bit mad at me when I was like, well, look, why don't we just use the scope? Because I got the win of the NBA was like opening up these arenas, and I was like, why don't we just open up the scope and have it? And I posted it on Facebook and social media, and then I got a chance to see the plan. I was like, okay, well, it's not a bad plan, but how do you feel like we're set up as far as because I know I'm just going to say it. The president, he has scared a lot of people out of voting by mail.
Yes, suppressions, it's part of the voter suppression. Mm-hmm. And Bob, as a professor of political science, you know better than most that tactic has been used and used again. So it's a scare tactic that don't vote by mail because it's not going to be counted. It's going to get lost. There's fraud. There's corruption, and that's just a voter suppression tactic. And I hope no one believes that is the case. It's been investigated, and it's there over the years. Voting by mail has worked, and the corruption and the abuse and the fraud that the president claims, it's been unfounded.
Right.
Our military personnel serving overseas vote by mail every election.
We have the world's largest naval base
in the world.
Just for the record.
Just right. And so that is just that's right. So some of the things that the council directed Stephanie to do in her board as well is to open up, take advantage of early voting. So early voting started on September 18th, right in City Hall. There are 4 satellite locations will open up on the 13th of October. Okay. And of course, there are 4. Berkeley Community Center is one. Pretlow Library is one. Lambert's Point, Rec Center will be a place. And we are mailing ballots out for those who request a ballot. And, we're just trying to make everyone aware. Drop boxes, the state has approved the State Board of Elections to promulgate guidelines for drop boxes. We don't have any drop boxes designated as of today, but that could change.
You know what I was thinking about drop boxes? I was looking at I know when they tore down the courthouses over here, and I see how they have that little drive-in, almost like a drive-in and drive-around thing right in City Hall. That it'd be a really good idea to put a couple of drop boxes because the easy access as far as that the easements and stuff is boom, drop it off. And I think a lot of people would feel more secure. It's almost well, I'm dropping it off in City Hall. I don't know. That's just my thought. I say, well, looking at just the easements, I'm talking about right out here where I think some of the city workers park at. If they just drive in, drop it off, and that way it'd be more secure as far as people collecting of it. I guess it's just a thing, but that's
And let me just touch on the pandemic. So, a couple of thoughts about the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Certainly, it has changed everything.
Right.
The way that we operate the city, but the city continues to be a resilient city, and we continue to serve our citizens, and in our communities. Before the budget that went in effect on July 1st, we noticed that we had to close FY20 budget, and that was about $15 million that we had to shed by July 30th, and then going into the budget because the pandemic had begun. The budget that was proposed, we cut $40 million from the proposed budget. So we end up cutting major dollars.
That's a lot.
A lot of money. And however, consumption taxes still, we're realizing some consumption taxes because people are spending, but not at the level
right.
pre-pandemic. So this is a novel virus, and there are a lot of things that we don't know. But at the same time, we look forward to a vaccination or people getting, those who want it, get an immunization.
Oh.
And Open Norfolk, we have our Open Norfolk program has been recognized and been applauded by other cities and around the country on how we have approached opening Norfolk with our small businesses using parking spaces,
Oh, yeah,
outdoor dining.
that was very dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, everybody's like, well, maybe we should do that.
Yes.
I've heard that buzz,
Yeah,
and I'm like, because just like when that was like we were the first.
Yes.
that I saw. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
And major cities called and asked, how did you do it? What's your plan? And certainly we shared that information with other cities as well.
Okay. Well, I just we're about to wrap up, but I have a couple of quick ones. I don't know if they're quick, but I have a couple more. I mean, we could do this for hours. I want to know everything, but this is Norfolk has a real special place for me. It's like I grew up here, and I'm like I grew up on the other side, so I'm kind of like when I got a chance, I came of age. I was like, oh, this is how that works, or that's how that works. But I'm looking at like the social. I call it the pandemic of racism because, I mean, it was almost amazing to me where the things that went on in Portsmouth with the monument, and then I got to give you credit. You were like, okay, take the monument down. I mean, it's like boom, and it happened. I was like, and I was like looking out. I was living in the Icon. I was looking out, and that was like the only thing I hated about living downtown was that when I come out my house or look out there, I had to see that statue, and I don't think everyone quite understands. I mean, we all, and talk about heritage or whatever, but for me, it was a symbol of oppression. But with that being said, I mean, like I said, I give credit where I was like, wow, because they was like, I mean, people was getting hurt, and I no knock on Portsmouth. I'm just saying, just the expedience that you did, do that with that was appreciated, and I want to talk about like justice reform because, unfortunately, I was like, after George Floyd, I was like, this is gonna happen again, and I tried to keep that because I didn't want to be the naysayer. And then something else happened, but when we're looking at social reform, and I kind of had an issue with the. I wanted full disclosure. This is just me. I wanted full disclosure of the police. Anytime they engage somebody and they use force, I wanted it to be, I'm not saying that we didn't have to go through a FOIA request or something, but I don't think that them saying, well, we're not going to tell you. I didn't think that was. And so the other thing I think that the council voted on was Citizen Review Board or was a Citizen Review Panel. I think one had more subpoena power, and the other was just like recommendation power. So kind of cleared it up and kind of helped us out.
So thank you. So after the death of Breonna Taylor in Kentucky, and Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia, and George Perry Floyd in Minneapolis, there has been a renewed effort to have police reform, criminal justice reform, and certainly it is needed. It is absolutely needed, and there are others that have died as well,
Right.
At the hands of police. And Arbery, Ahmaud Arbery's case, it was citizens. It was residents. He was out jogging in Georgia, and they decided to approach him, and it resulted in his death. And so one of the things that we recognize in the city of Norfolk is that there is a issue with equity, social equity,
Okay.
and also with lack of economic opportunity. And so one of the first things that we decided to do is pass a resolution creating this social equity and economic opportunity commission. And our goal was to meet this last month, which was September. But they're, as far as getting the data, and one young lady who is staffing, she was out on maternity leave, and she is a critical piece and a presenter. And so we're going to move forward and start sharing that information about social equity and economic opportunity. you touched on that when you cited that the concentration of poverty, and it touches health and education and employment and every other social ill. It's concentrated, and it's really dynamic and systematic in the lives of persons, and it's been generational. As it relates to the police reform, the General Assembly has taken up the issue in Richmond, and we will see the guidelines in a few weeks on how the panels how they will be empowered.
That was a special session. Right?
Special session should be wrapping up soon. And in that legislation, we will see what guidelines that we can tap. Some things may be permissive, and some things may be mandatory as it relates to the panel versus a commission, what oversight. Questions I would have is, how would the commission be formed? Right. Who picks the commission? Who picks the members? I have my own thoughts. My thoughts, personal thoughts, it should be a lottery where council members don't get to pick,
that's a good idea. No,
people.
That's novel.
Yeah.
That's novel.
You have a lot. Yes, for example, it's a one-page application. If you want to be put in the lottery, you meet that basic criteria, and you have staggering terms where Bob Z may have a 4-year term. Your neighbor who applied and won the lottery may have selected a 2-year term, and there'd be a 1-year term. So they're staggering, and no one gets to serve for 14 years, 15 years. So you get the benefit.
That's the fairest thing I've heard.
And then who's going to staff it? Where should it be housed? Should it be in the mayor's office? Should it be in the police department's office, city manager's office, city attorney's office?
That makes a difference.
Yeah, so who's going to staff it? Where it's going to be housed? And what type of budget? And more importantly, do they just recommend to the council? Because ultimately the council is the elected body, and no unelected body have taxing authority, or they can't pass an ordinance.
Exactly.
Can't pass a resolution, and so they can make a recommendation to the legislative body, which is the city council, and the council can take it under advisement and ask more questions, send it back. So I think that those are the type of questions from a process vantage point that I think that the council will help with the process. But as far as who's on the commission I think that if you really want that trust, that you build that trust and build that agency, then you have to allow citizens to be fairly selected in the fairest way that you can think of.
That was my thing. My thing with the whole piece was that so the same people that chose the police chief are going to choose the commission. No. So I was thinking that's like a train wreck waiting to happen. But look, we have to wrap it up after this question. But I got to ask you, what's next? What's next? Are we running for governor? What are we doing? Are we taking this show on the road? What's going on?
No.
Congressman, what?
No.
Bobby Scott retiring? What's happening?
I'm happy. I am happy and I'm glad. I'm happy glad as the mayor of Norfolk.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank the mayor for coming out, taking his time out of his busy schedule to come and bless us with his presence. And until we see you again, this is Unfiltered with Bob Z. Have a great day.